Hello and welcome to SBK Edge Rush Extra. Never forget the extra, Crystal. Tom Collins, you bring that, frankly, each and every week.
Yeah, well, look, we tried to provide the energy, the winners. Last week, if anyone tuned into SBK Edge Rush over on the Nat Coombs show, another plug in the first minute there, Nat.
Love that.
Unfortunately, the Drew Lock streak ended, but we had some success on this podcast, and hopefully it'll be the same this week in week 15.
We certainly do hope for that. There are 3 games we are looking at. I feel quite good about a number of them. I wonder whether you do as well. It feels like a slate that there's a lot of action to be had, I feel, this weekend. So let's start with the Lions at the Jets. The Lions, of course, suddenly going on this tear. They might make the playoffs in the inside rail. No doubt about it, Tom. One of the most exciting teams to watch. They're top 5 offense in terms of points per game, bottom 5 defense in terms of points per game. So you can expect a lot of points typically when the Lions are in town. They went over against the Vikings last week, or rather the game total did, which is one of the picks that we particularly liked over on SBK Edge Rush. Now, trickier waters await, though. The Jets ranking 6th in points allowed, 18.7, 3rd in total defense, 4th against the pass. So, can the Lions continue to make hay against one of the better defenses in the NFL?
Well, as you touched on, the Lions have kind of gone from 0 to hero. I mean, they started the season 1-6, but in their last 6 games, they're 5-1. They're really turning it up on offense. And I think it's more efficiency rather than just people coming into light. Because Amon-Ra St. Brown's been performing all year, but he hasn't been able to carry the Lions to success in the first part of the season. Now that Jamal Williams has started racking up the touchdowns, I think he's the league leader for touchdowns, incidentally. You've also got DJ Chark back in action. Plenty more weapons as well. Jameson Williams coming back. And Jared Goff has been super productive and efficient from quarterback position. As you've touched on, the Lions are putting up points, 32.2 points per game in their last 5 games alone. And although this defense, as you've touched on, the Lions defense isn't very good. I mean, they've given up the 2nd most points per game and the 2nd most yards per game this year. It doesn't matter if you're racking up points on offense, does it?
They're like a Kevin Keegan Newcastle for your old school Premier League fans out there. The Lions offensive line, one of the best units in the business, which is integral to why they're having so much success. And of course, Goff is one of those quarterbacks that is fundamentally different under pressure. You know, no quarterback likes pressure and welcomes it, but the very strong ones in that zone are able to be effective nevertheless. Right? Brady's probably the master of that, with that pressure coming, just that step away from it and bang. Goff, we've seen over his career, when he's under duress to an extreme degree, the wheels fall off. But if they protect him, which the Lions offensive line have done pretty effectively, this is where we see a top 10 quarterback. This is going to be fascinating, this battle. And with that Lions offensive line against the Jets front, with Quinnen Williams, Tom, 50-50 at the time of recording to start. I mean, that is a key injury to watch.
Yeah, whether he's active or not could change this game. The Jets are currently 1.5-point favourites on the spread. As you touched on, Jared Goff is a much better quarterback when there's no pressure. I have 2 different categories and certain examples in those categories. Quarterbacks not good at facing pressure, e.g. Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, albeit he can still get the job done. QBs who are great, Tom Brady, Joey Burrow, who will come on in a bit in the next game. But I think this game depends on whether the Jets can get pressure on that O-line. I think they will. But at the same time, I think the Lions are going to put up points, because why wouldn't they? If they're averaging 32.5 in the last 5 games, they're going to still be putting up points here. The over-under line is set to 44.5. I think the Jets will put up points as well. I think the main angle for this game, if you're punting and you're definitely taking the overs like myself, you want to see production from 2 receivers, one on both sides. For the Lions, DJ Chark. You need someone to back up Amon-Ra St. Brown, use that other corner, man coverage, try and get open and try and score those touchdowns, move the sticks. For the Jets, I think the crucial player is Elijah Moore, because yes, they have a good running game, but Mike White is injured. He has got a rib injury. He's playing, thankfully, because we don't want to see Joe Flacco in this game, do we? But I think if Elijah Moore can continue to move and get first downs, I think the Jets are going to put up points as well. So the over for me in this game, Matt.
Yeah, I absolutely love that play as well. I am leaning over for sure. Mike White, as you say, says he has no doubt he'll play on Sunday. Interestingly, Zach Wilson's looking around like, hey guys, what about me? Although talk that he has been elevated back to number 2 on the depth chart. So White, because obviously he's an injury doubt, if there is an issue there, expect Zach Wilson, not Joe Flacco, to come into this game. Right, Bengals Bucs, the next game on the slate. The Bucs, well, they don't expect to have Vita Vea this week, which I guess to some degree offsets the injuries that the Bengals are dealing with. There are 3 key players you got to keep an eye on for the Bengals: T. Higgins, such a crucial part of this offense for so many reasons. Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst, they could all be out, probably in that order. Again, the time of recording this on Friday, likelihood of starting. Hurst looks like the least likely to start. Higgins probably the most, with Boyd somewhere in between. They've both been practicing and participating in practice this week. So we might see him, but there might be diminished action from them. Despite that, let's say none of them go. No Vita Vea is crucial, of course, because he is integral to this Bucs run D. And if those three players don't start, sure, Jamar Chase will be filling his boots, but you would imagine the Bengals will lean heavily on the ground game and get some real traction there.
Yeah, 100%. Joe Mixon's coming back after a concussion. Samaje Perine really filled in nicely as well in the role of Joe Mixon over the last few weeks. And those two have been key to how the Bengals have been successful in recent weeks. They've won their last 5. They're really performing. The O-line as well has definitely improved. I mean, it had to improve because it was horrific last year. Joey Burrow was facing pressure basically on every single play. Even on run plays, before he could get the ball to the running back, he was getting pressure. So I think those two factors are key here. Jamar Chase can carry the load. We know he can handle double coverage and he can still get open. So he's going to get his targets. He's going to get his receptions. It's just if they can get that run game going. Because if they can, I think the Bengals, who are 3.5-point favorites in this game, that's the way to play on the spread. Because this Bucs team, I mean, last week against the 49ers, it was just, they were terrible. You're Tom Brady, you're facing Brock Purdy, you're thinking, here we go. We've got potentially the GOAT of all time versus a rookie QB who, albeit, performed well against Miami. They had nothing on either side of the ball. Defense was terrible. Offense was terrible. You're now pitching them against the Bengals, who I know, after reading your SBK Edge Rush column over on betting.getsbk.com, think the Bengals got a great chance of winning the Super Bowl this year, right?
I do. I think right now they are front and center for me in terms of everything coming together. You look what Lou Anarumo, one of the most underrated coordinators in the game. And by that, I mean, he obviously got a lot of attention with the Super Bowl run last year. In terms of the elevator pitch for Anarumo, such a smart motivator, such a smart defensive mind that he can bring the best out of players that don't on paper look like they are an all-star lineup, right? There are obviously one or two big names in there, but generally speaking, it is a collection of solid pros that he's elevated. And I think a lot of the concern about the Bengals, well, there were two concerns going into the season, right? The first was, for the love of everything in life, please protect Joe Burrow. He's been sacked, incidentally, on that point 35 times this season, but only 6 over the past 5 games. So that offensive line is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Tick in terms of improvement there. The second was, well, did the defense overperform with us in that Super Bowl run? Can the Alchemist create it once again? Well, the answer is yes. So Anarumo, underrated in terms of head coaching opportunities. I think he's surely going to be in the mix with that cycle. When we get to Black Monday, we know what opportunities are going to be there for head coaching vacancies going into the offseason. Anarumo has got to be in the mix. So I love the balance here. Joe Burrow right now is my favorite quarterback in the NFL. And I love you too. And I'm a Miami fan and you're great. But Burrow all the way for me right now is a lights out good. So yeah, I'm really strong on them. Speaking of the offensive line, that is the fundamental problem, of course, for the Bucs this season. If the Bengals offensive line has improved significantly, then this Bucs offensive line has regressed, which has forced Tom Brady to be getting the ball out way too quickly. They don't really have those yards after catch kind of receivers, a point that the guru Sandrini pointed out on our fantasy show FFS, and they haven't got a ground game. And that's not entirely disconnected. The line is bad, so the ground game can't get going either. This is why this Bucs offense looks so static, so sluggish, so old school. But Brady and the Bucs, they're up against it now because there's danger that they could lose the NFC South. The Panthers coming in on the inside rail. So I think that changes this week. There's no Trey Hendrickson as well for the Bengals. I think they're going to get the offense moving. I think they're going to put up points. And that's why I like the over. In fact, it is my Drew Lock of the week over on SBK Edge Rush. Crystal Tom.
Yeah, absolutely love to hear it. Look, I can definitely see the Bucs putting up points in this game. The one thing I will say is, and this is nothing to diminish Tom Brady or his career or any of that kind of rubbish, but I think this is his worst season since 2006. Now, I know that's a big statement, but at the same time, as you said, the O-line isn't really performing. So, he's had negatives to kind of work around and no run game. They should go with Rachaad White, by the way, not Leonard Fournette. I think he's looked really slow in recent weeks. Rachaad White has that little bit of burst. But yeah, I think Brady needs to step up. But he knows he needs to step up now with the Carolina Panthers looming large in the NFC South. last thing to touch on with the Bengals, they've won their last 5, but they haven't been beating bad teams. There are some teams in the NFL that have been beating bad teams and have gone on a win streak, and everyone's like, well, you know what? This team could be a playoff team. But the Bengals have gone against the Carolina Panthers with a good defense and put up 43 points. Then they've gone on the road against the Titans and Steelers, 2 places you don't really want to go, and they beat them both. Then they outscored the Chiefs. I mean, I don't need to say anything about that. And then last time out, they beat the Browns in the Battle of Ohio, a big rivalry. So 5 tough games, and they've won them all. I imagine they're going to come out on top against the Bucs. But look, hopefully there is points for the neutral fan and yourself.
Yeah. Thanks, bud. Me too. Right, Giants Commanders. It feels like a play-in game, Giants Commanders, doesn't it? Given the way the playoff picture is shaping out. The Giants on tilt. The Commanders off a bye week. Although Seattle's loss on Thursday Night Football helps them both, for sure. If you look at the Giants tilt, it doesn't take a genius to work out what is going on there. 2 fundamental factors. Firstly, their offense was, if not one-dimensional, then heavily leaning on Saquon Barkley, and he has diminished in terms of effectiveness over the last 4 games. He's just 152 yards on the ground. He's caught only 13 passes, 64, of course, so useful out of the backfield as well. And the Giants 0-3-1 in that span. That one tied game, incidentally, was, of course, against the Commanders a couple of weeks back. So that's Exhibit A. Then you look at their defense. In that first 9-game run, when everybody was anointing Brian Daboll as coach of the year, and that's not a knock on Daboll, he's been brilliant, 19.2 points per game is what they were averaging. In the last 4, almost 32 a game. So the defense has fallen off a cliff. The offense has run out of gas, or Saquon has. This is no surprise why the Giants are tilting at the wrong time. I think they're going to miss out on the playoffs, and I really like Washington in this spot.
100% agree with everything you just said there. I think Washington are definitely the play in this spot. I think money line is an absolute banker. I included that in my Taylor Heineke Aka over on SBK Edge Rush. But even if you're taking -4.5, I still think that's a good play in this game. As you said, they're very much the opposite of the Detroit Lions this year. Tale of 2 seasons, started badly, picked up for the Lions, started great, fallen off for the Giants. Saquon Barkley is not performing as well as he was, largely due to the fact that every team knows that this offense is just Barkley. I mean, this wide receiver room is the worst in the league. Now, yes, they traded away Kadarius Toney, who's subsequently injured again, by the way. Not good for my fantasy teams. Kenny Golladay is an absolute ghost. I don't know what's happened to him. So this whole wide receiver room is basically Darius Slayton and Isaiah Hodgins, who I didn't even know before the start of this season. So, yeah, look, Dan Jones has not got much to work with. And if Barkley can't get going on the ground, then the Giants' offense is just going to be faltering. Commanders, meanwhile, have been performing well. They actually dominated in that 2020 tie against the Giants 2 weeks ago at MetLife. They had over 400 yards on offense. They dominated the time of possession, 41 minutes to 28. They just couldn't get over the line. I think they will in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you lockstep there. So I think we're in a full agreement on this one. I think we like the over in the Lions Jets, very much like the Bengals. And I've taken the over as my Drew Lock of the week as well in that one. And we like the Commanders money line and with the points as well. So there we go. Lockstep central, Crystal Tom. That makes me feel good, because if what I'm thinking is aligned with what you're thinking, that is the better way around.
Hey, look, this is the week now where we just go 100%. Your Drew Locks have been super unlucky all year, but this is the turning point. I can feel it.
The comeback, the tilt ends right here on that front. You mentioned SBK Edge Rush. You can go and check that out on the Nat Coombs Show podcast feed, available at all good podcatchers. Loads more picks, ideas, propos, prop bets of the week. Lots of other games that we look at on the Week 15 slate. So we will get you set over there. We are back same time, same place next week with more SBK Edge Rush Extra. One more thing though before we get out of Dodge. That's £5 in the charity pot, incidentally. If you are a new SBK Edge Rush customer, if you're a new SBK customer and you bet £10, we will put £30 of free bets in the mix for you. Remember, gamble responsibly. You've got to be 18 plus. Be gambleaware.org. Crystal Tom, I feel good about this week, and I know you do too. So keeping everything crossed. We'll see you next time.
See you next time, Matt.